What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, yesterday we had a shocking and exciting game announcement, one that I think could take this franchise to the next level, and that franchise is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We're going to go over that here today. Also, we are going to be taking a look at a new game announcement or upgrade from Sega that has the Sonic community split since it has to do with Sonic Origins. And we're also going to be talking about this game called Everywhere from ex-Grand Theft Auto developers that just seems to have the internet completely confused. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're gonna start today with Silent Hill 2 Remake, this coming from Bloober team, and of course being licensed out by Konami, which is what Konami should be doing now, is just getting out of the way and letting other developers create some of these long-running franchises that they own. Well, we're kind of expecting this Silent Hill game to come out this year, 2023, and it kind of sounds like it's on track for that. We could see this posted up, this over on DualShocker, saying during an interview with Pat Business, the Bloober team had stated that the Silent Hill 2 remake is technically ready, and that the date of the title's debut is up to Konami. The studio had also clarified this does not mean the game's development is finished, as there would still be like polishing work and other things that would go into it beyond just the core structure of the game being done. And I've been trying to think of when Konami would show up and announce the release date. I kind of think they're lining up a lot right now for E3, and it makes sense considering people are expecting other franchises maybe to be revealed there, like a new Castlevania game or games, and maybe Metal Gear Solid, but a safe bet would definitely be some more information around different Silent Hill games that they announced last year, Silent Hill 2 Remake being the big one. So look out for that release date here coming up, I think, pretty soon. Also, we did get a release date for Lord of the Rings Gollum. It is coming out May 25th across all platforms, except for the Switch. Apparently that version will be coming later, but this game specifically made headlines when it was first shown off as a PlayStation 5 game, when we were just trying to figure out what PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series games were going to look like in the first place. That's one of the reasons it drew a lot of attention. Ever since then, though, it's mostly been talks around delays, and that's kind of been it. So I guess at least they're pushing the game out, but I gotta tell you, I haven't really heard much talk or interest in this title, and it kind of feels like they're just pushing it out there. It's an action stealth game, and I'm sure Lord of the Rings fans will at least be somewhat interested in it, but otherwise, I kind of think based on everything else around it, it's going to get kind of pushed to the back. Oh, and we did have a firmware update that released for the Nintendo Switch. That's 16.0.1, and, well, what do you think it does? If you guess stability, go ahead and try to stand your Switch up and see if it is a little more balanced now, because that's exactly what it did. Actually, we can see Oatmeal Dome has this posted up here, just saying that internally the bad words list were rearranged to reduce erroneous blocking, and various words were added or removed in some languages. The BCAT system module was changed in some way, but I'm not sure how. That being said, it's probably a bug fix or fixes, given how difference report shows no major changes, and that's kind of it. Also, it was noted by Oatmeal Dome that they changed the description for Kirby's Dream Land 2, mostly just kind of the wording, I guess, for some of the characters in the game, and yeah, that's kind of it. That was sort of a silent update that just sort of happened. It wasn't one where you might have to restart your entire system or anything with firmware, but nonetheless, even though not a lot happened with 16.01, might as well update your Switch and make sure everything's set. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We recently had Shredder's Revenge, and that was a really good release, right? I mean, smaller budget game, but definitely harkened back to the arcade days with like Turtles in Time, right? Or going to the bowling alley or wherever you had that turtle machine and just dropping in a bunch of quarters. It was good stuff. But I have been wondering if we could get a larger scale Turtles game, and there's one story in particular that's happened recently that I was thinking, you know, this would make a really good video game, and I can't believe it because randomly I read this headline. You can see, beloved TMNT graphic novel The Last Ronin is becoming a video game. I had to like triple check my monitor when I saw this. I thought I was like hallucinating or something. This is an incredible idea. It also mentions it's inspired by big action RPGs like God of War. I'm also gonna say that's a good idea, which I'll get into that a bit without spoiling the whole thing. Okay, so The Last Ronin, it's a graphic, well, it came out as a series. I think it was 5 like, I think it was 5 comics, essentially, a series that it ran, like a mini-series. And then they took it and put it into a graphic novel, I believe. So you can just get that now on Amazon and go through it. You can get it as like a hardcover. It's very nice. And I came across Last Ronin just from seeing people talk about it online, like on Twitter and stuff. So I looked into it, and it was a really, really good story. And it wasn't like overly long or anything, so it is something you could check out fairly quickly, right? But let me just read the excerpt here, the summary from Amazon, just to make sure I don't accidentally spoil anything while I'm trying to explain it, saying, in a future battle-ravaged New York City, a lone surviving turtle embarks on a seemingly hopeless mission seeking justice for the family he lost. Now, the story in question, as you see there, follows one turtle, and that's because the other turtles, as well as Splinter, were all wiped out by the Foot Clan. And one of the best parts about this is, to start, you don't know which turtle survived and is seeking revenge. That eventually gets revealed, obviously, but it was kind of interesting because going through the beginning, like the first issue, you're just trying to guess, okay, which turtle is this? Because they don't have like a colored mask on or anything, and it was really cool to see that. And then some other characters that also survived. And then there's flashbacks going over what happened to different turtles, and to kind of take that and maybe make it feel like a narrative-driven single-player, they say action RPG, that's not campy or cartoony like some of the previous Turtles games we've had. I think that would fit in perfectly with how sort of the audience has grown up, right? Like, when I'm younger, we really liked Turtles. It was on TV as a cartoon. You had those action beat-em-up games. It was great. But we've gotten older, and you feel like if you had a more mature Turtles storyline to follow and you could create a game around, it would probably do really well. Now, this is according to Doug Rosen, who's the Senior Vice President for Games and Emerging Media at Paramount Global, says Last Ronin video game adaptation will be a darker, more mature take on the typically colorful Ninja Turtles. Again, perfect. And it makes sense because the last Ronin story they had, it is definitely a grisly, dark future that they are showing. I mean, it is certainly a very mature take on the Turtles. Although the comic side of the Turtles, like that iteration, was much more mature than what we had with the colorful cartoon side. But here's the interesting situation. We don't know who's developing it. Now, they mentioned it's still years off. They did say AAA, and it sounded like, hey, this is going to be worked on until it's ready. We're just going to let this thing cook for a while, which I think is a great idea because there's just so much potential here and is a really exciting prospect to tackle a really good storyline with the Turtles and to have, I would say, a different take on what we've been used to in video games with the Ninja Turtles is awesome. So I'm just hanging out, waiting to see more about this, but I'm not in a rush to get this thing out there, especially if they can put together something. I mean, they're using God of War as inspiration. I don't know if they'll get to that level necessarily when it comes to presentation and visuals and stuff, but who knows? We just need to find out who's developing it. I think in the past we've had Activision, Ubisoft, Konami, Platinum. Those are all studios who have worked on the Turtle IP, so I don't know if Platinum would be up to developing something like that. Maybe. Otherwise, I wouldn't be shocked if they did go to Ubisoft, actually, for it. So a lot of possibilities. We'll just keep our eyes out to see what studio would be tackling The Last Ronin. Next up, let's talk about the Famitsu sales charts. We've been following this for the last several weeks as the PS5 has been topping the hardware chart for, I think, the last 7 weeks. But we can start with some of the games here. At the top, it's still Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, 25,201. Been kind of a quiet couple of weeks, I would say, in terms of game releases in Japan. But then Pokemon Scarlet and Violet at 2, Splatoon 3, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 4, Minecraft at 5, Bayonetta Origins. So that feels like it's pretty low for that release at 6,474. I mean, it could be because they released it at a full $60 and people were questioning that price immediately after seeing it, but hey, we'll see how it continues along, and I'm sure Nintendo will share some numbers, although if it doesn't hit 1 million, I don't know if they share the numbers then. Then we have Hogwarts Legacy there at 7, Nintendo Switch Sports at 8, Octopath Traveler 2 at 9, still trying to hold on in the top 10 for sales. Then Super Smash Bros. Ultimate rounding out the top 10. Moving over to the hardware, the Nintendo Switch has reclaimed that top spot, 49,585 systems sold. Then we have the PS5, 40,411, the PS4, 1,115. By the way, we've seen the PS4 actually outsell the Xbox Series many weeks now in a row, and it's interesting to see that. The Xbox Series 555, the 3DS had a sizable jump somehow to 138. So while the PlayStation 5 did have a string of weeks where it was just outselling the Switch over and over again, it does look like Nintendo has retaken that top spot. Although, I think we're just gonna see these two systems trade back and forth for a little while now, and I am curious to see what happens when something like a Resident Evil 4 remake that's coming up, see if that has an effect on sales for the PS5, but also obviously things like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and then Final Fantasy 16 and so on. So I think for the rest of this year, you're mostly going to see those two spots just jump back and forth over and over again, although I wouldn't be surprised if you see the PS5 at the top more often, just because the Switch clearly is seeing that market saturation, as so many people right now already have one in Japan. So the software releases won't have the same impact just because people just need the game now. They already have the system. Next up, let's talk about Sonic Origins Plus, as there is a new expansion coming out for the game that released last year, and a lot of frustration with the release. Some of the emulation or whatever they had to do to get it working wasn't great, and in fact, to this day, still remains kind of broken. But Sega decided it was time to introduce DLC for it, which comes in the way of a bunch of Game Gear games. First, though, if you missed it, we can see the Sonic Origins collection here. That included Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 2, Sonic 3, Sonic & Knuckles, and Sonic CD. Now, if we look at Sonic Origins Plus, which apparently is a $10 upgrade if you just want to go from Sonic Origins to it, you have all the different Game Gear games, as well as the ability to use Amy as a playable character. Now, the games include Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic Chaos, Triple Trouble, Labyrinth, Blast, Drift, Drift 2, 2-in-1, Tails Adventure, then Sky Patrol, and Sonic Spinball. All of this slated to release June 23rd, 2023. I believe that's Sonic's 32nd anniversary. And there will be a physical edition, which looks pretty cool. It has like the slipcover and all of this, of course, out on the Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox platforms there. So that comes to a total of 16 classic titles they describe, and it looks like you'll also get a 20-page art book with it. Now, I gotta be honest, when Sonic Origins came out, I just wasn't that interested in it, mostly because I feel like I've bought 2 or 3 collections with Sonic games in it already, and then they were just selling it again. I guess having all these Game Gear games in there and then Amy as a playable character, that's kind of neat. And it being a physical copy, sure, for collectors, that's great. But it seems odd because you feel like this would have made more sense to release just last year when they first released Origins, just this package with a physical copy, because that was something that everyone looked at and was just confused about. Like, why is there no physical copy? Well, here's the complete edition of it. It's $10 more if you had already bought Sonic Origins, or a total of $40 if you're a new customer. But I guess if you like the idea of having all these different games kind of in one spot, or if you were indeed holding out for that physical copy, well, that's not too bad then. But I understand why people are looking at this saying, hold on, you're doing DLC without completely fixing that base game. And yeah, I think Sega should be moving to do that. And I mean, they've had a while, right, since last year, and it's still kind of messed up. So here's hoping ahead of that June release for this downloadable content, they can figure it out and release like a sizable patch or just update to get this all worked out heading into release June 23rd. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Everywhere and Mind's Eye. This coming from a studio that was formed, I believe, like 6 years ago, and the studio itself is a product of a breakup at Rockstar. And if you forgot about the trailer that was shown and just confused everyone, here it is. It was at Gamescom last year. And this is coming from the ex-Grand Theft Auto producer Leslie Benzies. They went off after, we'll say, a very rocky breakup with Rockstar at the time, and they created Build a Rocket Boy, now housing more than 400 staff, and they're developing Everywhere and Mind's Eye. People did like a previews for this in the press, and everyone's kind of having a hard time explaining exactly what this is, because the idea here, really, from what I can gather, is Mind's Eye is a project they've made, a AAA narrative-driven kind of experience, and they had a trailer for that as well, which you can see. And it looks fine, right? You go, okay, sure, this looks like a AAA big-budget game that you would see ex-Grand Theft Auto developers creating. But then everywhere is the thing that's kind of tripping everyone up, because everywhere is being described, I feel like, as a platform. It's even being talked about as more advanced version of PlayStation Home, basically an area you go to, and from there people can interact, socialize, even create different things, as they have their own creative suite on top of Unreal Engine that they have completely like customized. So you'll be able to develop things and make different items or mini games even. And then they're also creating these larger episodic projects like Mind's Eye, which sounds like something that will be ongoing for quite a while. And in their, I assume in their mind, is a way to keep people engaged with everywhere. Now, they were very quick and clear to say that this is not a metaverse project and that there are no NFTs or cryptocurrency involved, which was sort of a speculation and rumor that was going around after a job listing appeared to be recruiting people who were very familiar with Web3 and NFTs and that sort of thing. But when you look at what they'd be trying to build here, which has been just really compared to things like Roblox or Fortnite, it just seems very ambitious for their studio to try to create. But hey, I guess at one point Fortnite was a very basic save the world kind of setup game, right? And then they branched off into Battle Royale, and then it actually did turn into a point where people were having full concerts in the Battle Royale setting. So it's not impossible. It just seems like a lot to bite off here, and I'll be curious because this game or this platform is supposed to be launching sometime later this year, so we'll see if we can wrap our heads around it then. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, are you familiar with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle graphic novel, The Last Ronin? Look at this. 54% say no, I don't know what it is. 27% say no, but I've heard people talk about it. 19% say yes, I know what happens in this story. Think about this. The number of people, especially if you've read the storyline, the series, the 5-page or the graphic novel, think about how many people are going into this complete just unknown as to what's about to happen or what they're about to see. Think about how their minds would be blown going through it as an interactive experience through a video game that would be quote unquote AAA, similar to a God of War kind of setup. I think this could be an incredible experience if they do it right. And it's one of the reasons I take your time, find the right developer, the right publisher, whatever you have to do to make this as good as possible, because I think this could be, as weird as it sounds, a launching point for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in the video game space. They've had games, right? But it hasn't been like that big time God of War or The Legend of Zelda, or can we say Halo anymore? You know what I mean? Like the big experience where you're just like, okay, the Final Fantasies, and it's never gotten to that level. But The Last Ronin, the story is there, the setting, it's all there. If they can just pull it off, I think this would be something special. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Juan, who says, you'll get your Tears of the Kingdom demo when it inevitably leaks in Mexico around May 1st. So this is going to happen, and it's going to be a very interesting week online. Not necessarily that it will leak in Mexico on May 1st. It's going to leak minimum a week early. And that is going to be something, because Nintendo will certainly be scrambling the ninjas to try to cut it down wherever they can, because leaks will be going everywhere. People now are like, oh, I trust them, don't need to see anything else. You might not have a choice. You might just be scrolling online and boom, there's the end boss or something. So it's going to be something. And you know what? That's coming up pretty soon, because the game is out in what, 6-7 weeks now. It's starting to get exciting, but I'm just waiting to wake up one morning and see Nintendo announce on Twitter that Zelda Direct is coming, and it's like 30 minutes long. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Whereas the idea of a video game being developed for the Last Ronin storyline with the Ninja Turtles, do you think it has as much potential as I do, or do you think I'm just being really hopeful around it? And then also, what about Sonic Origins getting DLC before the game itself has mostly been fixed? And then this whole concept of everywhere, what do you think they're trying to make over there, and will they be able to succeed? Thanks guys for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.